Oh. Yeah, I say it in Starship.
Okay, here we go.
Oh, yeah, I try to do Starship.
I'm sure you've heard welcome back from all your teachers, so you won't hear it from me. All right, you're all welcome. Let's just orient yourself as far as what's happening. By now, you should have completed the deviant behavior test, and thank you to about the 1/4 of you who did it. To the rest of you, no need to panic. You can still do it, and you should still do it. If you checked Infinite Campus right now, a lot of you would be kind of disappointed in your grade right now because you're 0 for your deviant behavior test, but you can still fix it. Also, on exactly half of your agendas is a presentation on a race-based issue. That starts tomorrow. And if you don't remember what your issue is, come find me and we'll address it. I have the list. Also, the third thing that's on your plate is the successful completion of paper number 2, which we will work on today. That paper is part of your final. So I don't know if you heard or not, but finals this year are not necessarily a sit down and take a test sort of thing. It's just some sort of a measurement that where you display some ability, growth, whatever, and paper number 2 is, in my opinion, perfect. There is no KIA for this unit on race yet. And I actually haven't even decided if I will bother, okay? Just one other thing, thanks to some of you who worked really hard over break. I know you know who you are. Wow, you did a lot, some of you. Good job. And if you didn't, it's all right. I mean, I'm not your mom. Okay. Any questions before we start attacking race? Yes. The papers? Well, the last day of class is the 16th, which is a Wednesday. And then you juniors, you'll be here Thursday taking the fake ACT. And of course, the rest of you will also supposedly be here, but there's other things going on. And then that Friday is reward day. So the last day of class is the 16th. So the answer to your question is the 16th. But we'll be working on it together, right? Okay. We already encountered what a race was. I know this has been a while, but we already defined a race. If you don't remember, look in your notes for what makes a thing a race instead of an ethnic group. Today we will look at ethnic groups. You should be able to tell me the difference. In fact, I see a test question that goes something like this. I list a bunch of groups and you identify them as a race or an ethnic group. There will be 2 options, race or ethnic group. You will go through and identify all the ones that have race, and then the rest are ethnic group. Okay? Here's a list of various large ancestries based on the 2000 census. They're all various American groups. So how many of you are German? Wow, a heavy German presence. By the way, Wisconsin is one of the most German states in the nation. How many of you are Irish? Again, I purposefully identified those 2 groups because you are living basically in Ireland West. When all those Irish moved to America, a lot of them stayed in New York, but a significant percentage moved to the Midwest. Et cetera, et cetera. You can see that German and Irish are the largest 2 ethnic groups. So let's try and figure out what is an ethnic group. And basically an ethnic group is if there's a nation dash and then American, that's an ethnic group.
like the
Nation dash is ethnic group. Ethan, did you hear me? Okay, I said nation dash is an ethnic group, right? All right. Next word out of your mouth is either the word race or the word ethnic group. Okay, I will identify a group based on your knowledge of what an ethnic group is. An ethnic group is when it's nation dash American. Ready? Don't help him. Asian American. All right, now show me where the nation called Asia is.
You got me.
Okay. By the way, I set you up to fail, but your failure now makes everyone understand. Asian is not a nation. Asia is not a nation. So it's a race. Asian American is race, but Chinese American, ethnic group, because China's a nation. African American.
ethnic group. Ethnic group.
Yes, country. African American. What is it?
Ethnic group.
It's a race.
Wait, yeah.
Africa is not a nation. No, this is just large ancestries. Okay, these are both races and ethnic groups. But if I were to say to you, Egyptian American,
Wait.
that's ethnic group. Nation dash ethnic group. Area dash race. Yes, dear.
Ooh, got him.
Why? Ethnic group. Australia's a nation.
And a continent.
Ooh.
Yes, I know,
Double
but
got him.
if it's a nation, it's an ethnic group.
Wait, what about Australian American? Is that a race?
She just asked that.
No, but like,
It's an ethnic group.
yeah, it'd be a race.
No. Okay. So definition, here it is. It is a group that's somehow set apart by its national origin, or there are some others that also qualify as ethnic group because some other unique cultural aspect. Like, for example, Puerto Rican.
That's a race.
It is not.
Then what's a race?
What's a race? Oh boy.
No.
Let's go back a few. Skin color, black, African American. That's a race because yes, is it just color of skin? But that skin color has taken on cultural significance. So it becomes a race.
So what-
Puerto Rican is an ethnic group because while Puerto Rico is not a nation, it is a unique culture that sets it apart. Okay? We'll identify more of these. But Puerto Ricans are an ethnic group. Jews, Jewish American. Now, Jewland is not a nation. Well, Israel is certainly a Jewish state, but all Jews do not come from Israel. Okay? But the Jewish people are a unique people with a unique history, a unique language, unique religious views, so they qualify as an ethnic group. Jew is not a race. What the Nazis did during World War II was say, yes, it is a race.
Okay.
But it isn't. It's an ethnic group. And then any dash, Polish Americans, Somalian Americans, Iraqi Americans, Australian Americans, German Americans, English Americans, French Americans. That's all ethnic group. If you can have a nation dash, it's ethnic group. Any questions there? One slide left, and then we're going to attack your next paragraph. So, okay. Now let's identify, well, what makes one a minority group? Okay. I just enjoyed this. We're a huge minority, the biggest and best by far, says the little teeth people versus the big teeth people. What is a minority group? Someone raise your hand, tell us a definition. A minority is what?
The lesser group.
Smaller group,
Yeah.
right? So it is a numerical definition. Minority is a numerical definition. Is that it?
No.
Let's see. Are blondes a minority? Well, maybe numerically they are.
They're discriminated against.
Okay, very good. So let's identify two qualifiers that, as far as this class is concerned, makes you a minority. One, numerically, you're smaller. But two, you have some inherent disadvantages. You have a lack of power, right? The very, very wealthy are a minority numerically, but they are not a minority because they have power. So there are two characteristics of a minority. One is numerically you're smaller, but the second is you lack power, the ability to manipulate your own life. Minorities lack the ability to manipulate the law. So a lot of times they are blamed, scapegoated, the victim of discrimination. Go ahead.
So Hitler turned the Jews into a minority.
Without doubt.
Okay.
Hitler turned the Jews into a minority. Okay. This is a map. No reason for you to take notes on this or recreate it. But what it's done is it's identified various minorities that exist throughout the nation. So you and I live in one of the whitest states in the nation. We'll get you someday, Vermont. But Milwaukee is the most racially diverse city in Wisconsin, a large African-American population. The South has a large African-American minority population. As a matter of fact, in some areas of the South, they are not a minority, they're a minority. They are not the minority, they're a majority. Hispanic in the Southwest, various other groups that are a minority. What might the minority be in northern Minnesota? Or it's northern Wisconsin as well? Any guesses? Native. Very good. Native American. Okay. So the definition that I have up here is a group that lacks political or economic power. As a result, they're scapegoated, they're blamed, they're treated differently. There might be some physical characteristics that exist that lead to this treatment. We are going to learn about two things, not today, but we will learn about something called ascribed status versus something else, another type of status. Just understand this. Ascribed status is something that you did nothing, you just were. Hey, how many of you are female? Okay, girls raising your hand, right? That is ascribed. You had no power over that. You were just born that way. You were born female. How many of you plan on going to college someday? You're going to be college attendees. See, that is not ascribed. That's the decision you made. You are going to be a college student, but not because you were born that way. It's because you made a decision. That is another type of status. That is not ascribed status. That is attained status. So understand that a minority is ascribed. You just are part of the group. Okay? And then the final characteristic that's up here is solidarity. What that means is the people that are in that group kind of circle the wagons. They identify with each other. They recognize themselves as a distinct group. An example is something called in-group. In-group, fill in the blank. I happen to fill it in with marriage. Okay, so I don't know. Have I introduced you to Graham Grun before? My grandma, Graham Grun. Bless her soul. She died a few years back. But when my brother came to Christmas break one day, I think I told you this story, with his girlfriend, very cute, right? And Graham Grun, and there we are at Christmas, and Graham Grun calls me over and says, "What do you think of David's girlfriend?" And I'm 16 years old. She's pretty hot, so I don't know. She seems nice to me. And she says those magical words, "But she's black." And at that moment, it's like, oh, Graham. But I love Graham. She's a lovely person. She's just old. And so sometimes generations have different attitudes. And back then, the idea of black person with a white person. It's just a generational thing. Graham Grun would support in-group marriage. White people marry white people. Jews marry Jews. You might have African Americans who feel that. My black son is not going to marry no white lady. You're going to marry a black person, right? In group. You stay in group because you will then perpetuate the culture. There's a huge issue that most of us in this room are white. We don't recognize it as an issue because we'd say, what's the big deal? But a huge issue in the African American community is adoption. So black kid gets adopted by white parents. And you and I would look at that and say, so 3 meals a day, loving household, support their educational status. But within the African American community, it's pretty controversial because that kid is not going to learn about black culture. You're going to learn white culture. But that's not a white kid. That's a black kid. He or she should learn black culture. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm simply identifying that the belief in group fill in the blank is something that is held by some people, whether that group of people is the majority or the minority. There are minorities who believe in group, whatever, adoption, marriage, association, whatever. Okay. Another word for this is segregation. That's what it is, right? It's segregation.
It's kind of self-segregation sometimes.
It could be self-segregation. You're absolutely right. Another interesting thing that we just think about, and then we'll be done here, is that when I throw out the word segregation, I think what happens in most of your minds is bad. Segregation, bad. Martin Luther King, Jim Crow laws. And that's fine. That you think that is fine. On the other hand, there are instances when the conclusion is segregation is good. Like if I have to go to the bathroom, that better be a segregated situation. Segregation based on gender. Or how about Native American reservations? That's segregation. And yet, that's a conclusion that many thought was the better solution. There was an attempt in the mid-1800s to say, look, Native Americans, why don't you just join us? We welcome you. Become one of us. Just become an American. And that was seen as the bad idea. Desegregation was seen as the bad idea because the Native American would lose his culture. So it was like, no, we don't want to be swallowed up by the dominant majority population. We want to, in this situation, segregate. And that was seen as the better solution. Whereas with African American, the idea of black schools, white schools was seen as the bad solution, and desegregation was seen as the good solution. But in Indian situations, desegregation was seen as the bad solution, and segregation was seen as the good solution.
I don't know if those are really comparable.
Oh, I totally agree with you that I'm comparing apples and oranges. I'm just suggesting that don't automatically assume desegregation is good and that segregation is bad. Sometimes it's good. Bathrooms, that's good. Okay. Any questions? We have till what? 1:30. Yep. So let's write a paragraph. So there are the porta potties. Get your computer, retrieve all the information you need for the successful writing of your next paragraph. Let's do this. Let's go.
Sure, I gotta text Danielle my notes. Stupid losers coming back from London.
Put mine away.
In the next couple minutes, you are retrieving everything you need for the successful writing of your next paragraph, which I think is paragraph number 4.
Put mine away.
I already started paragraph 4. Haha.
Awesome.
I was bored and I was like, you know what?
You did a lot.
I'll give both of you. Right? I'll give it to you. And then no, I don't care if you throw a hit. How's your break?
I got this shirt. Just what I need. Another white shirt.
I agree.
I only have like 15 now.
That's 142. And one for church.
Did you get any new ties?
That's what you mean.
So right now I'm looking at a population that is working on your computers, retrieving your paper, and then I'm seeing some of you who aren't bothering, which is an interesting choice, but you're making it, not me. Just remember this, that paper number 2 is your final. This is your final. So no, not necessarily, but your choice to not bother writing it is, in my opinion, an odd decision.
I mean, if you don't want to pass the class, I'm not too.
Oh.
That's
You don't want to
really
pass
simple.
the class, and that's theirs.
Yeah.
They're gonna regret it.
Will you just give me a thumbs up when you are sort of ready to rock? That you have your paper, you're ready to write the next paragraph. You have access to the quote you're going to use, the historical example you're going to use. You're ready to go. Just give me maybe point at me like
I don't
this.
remember where I left off.
8. 8.
My computer was
Computers have been kind of running funny today, so.
Oh, it turned on.
See, I told you. I knew you had the magic.
Am I correct? It's paragraph number 4.
I believe so, because I've just been doing it.
Oh.
I'd be on my own laptop, but she's about to die. Probably is late right now. I was watching Netflix last night and I was like, oh, it's late. I should go to bed.
Yeah, my
But then
I have a charger for
She's ready.
Oh yeah, 8.
You're not even in the right spot.
If you're ready, you gotta do this. 8.
Imagine having your rights being taken away because someone didn't want you anymore. Imagine the kids growing up to be the next Steve Jobs or kids. And all this is taken away from you when his parents decided to murder it.
The good news, as far as the paragraph we're working on today, is it's a lot easier than the previous 2 paragraphs because you are now arguing for the side you agree with. You've done the previous 2 paragraphs where you're acknowledging the side you disagree with, but the challenging part in writing those 2 paragraphs was you needed to find an example that refuted it, which involved you having to go to another document. And the nice thing is you don't have to do that anymore. All of your information should be pretty easy to find for this side of the argument for paragraph number 4. Okay, so we are writing our 4th paragraph, which is the side you agree with, reason number 1. So we are going to attack using this column here. You're writing your topic sentence. Let's write it. It should go something like this. The first reason blank is blank. So again, let's say that you're writing about abortion and you think abortion should be illegal. The first reason abortion should be illegal is, whatever your reason is. Okay? You don't have to say the first reason some people think, because this is what you think. So you're just saying the first reason is. You'll notice in the previous 2 paragraphs, you should have written something like the first reason some people think. The second reason some people mistakenly believe. Well, now this is what you believe to be true. So you don't need to do the some people think crap. And off you go. Goal number 2. I realize that as I'm talking, some of you are a little behind and some of you are sitting here waiting, but try and listen as you're going here. But look at your first sentence. Is there anything that needs a little bit of clarification? Like, for example, my paper on abortion. Let's say I'm writing that abortion should be illegal. First reason abortion should be illegal is because it's murder. Okay? Well, maybe a definition of exactly what murder means is necessary. Clarifying it, because it's not just killing. If all killing is murder, then when I step on an ant, I've committed murder. But that's not right. Murder involves a person as the victim. If all killing of people is murder, then all those soldiers during World War II who killed those Nazis committed murder. But that's not right. They didn't commit murder. That was a warranted killing. And the person whose house was invaded by the burglar and so retrieved his gun and shot the person dead committed murder. But that's not right. That person didn't commit murder. Self-defense is warranted. So murder needs clarification. Is there anything in your first sentence that you need to clarify? Or another way of looking at the context part is, what's going on at the time that warrants the argument you're making? So, for example, the abortion one. I have a sentence, some sort of statistical sentence about how many abortions are committed in the United States every year. Right? Just something that frames the debate in a way that I can read on and think, oh, I get it. Something, some statistical truth, a definition, maybe a brief history. Abortion has been legal since 1970, whatever. Okay, try and write a context sentence. Again, don't worry about hitting the home run here. I'm not worried about you hitting the home run. In other words, you don't have to have the perfect context sentence. I don't need it. Okay, wherever you're at is where you're at. I'm still talking as we're going here, but the third part is where you're actually going to be using that half sheet of paper, speaker, credibility, quote, and footnote. John Thompson, a doctor for Harvard, says blah, 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 blah. And then your footnote, as we've said before, is simply which article that you're quoting it from. Article 1, 2, 3, or 4. Right? You've already given to me the bibliographic information. I don't need it again. Unless you want to, that's fine. I don't want to get too far ahead of you, but the last part is you got to do a couple things. One, you have to explain the quote in your own words. What Thompson says is, what he means is, Thompson believes that. You got to put the quote in your own words. But then you need to prove it with some example. And the nice thing you should do to help me understand if you're providing an example is use those magical words, for example. Now I know you're providing an example. The good thing is, again, you found all this information if you were doing what you're supposed to be doing. You found all this information already. And then you need to wrap it up. Because A is true, B is true. Because abortion is murder, abortion should not be allowed. Okay. We are in here until 1:30. I realize that it's probably unlikely you're going to finish this paragraph, but this is my assumption. My assumption is that you will walk in the door tomorrow with this paragraph done, because we will work on the next paragraph starting tomorrow. Okay. So if you want to call that homework, okay. It might take you 10 minutes, maybe. 10 minutes of homework. If you want to call me over, if you're struggling, I'd love to help you. That'd be great. Otherwise, make sure that when you're done with your porta potties, they're back in the correct spot, plugged in. Pretty please. Do I have the attendance sheet somewhere?
I don't know. We never
You never got it? It made it to 3 tables. That's pretty good.
Someone's
You got it?
You wanna know what life hack is? You don't put in your stuff yet. You just wait. Cause you put in like the structure for it. And then you put in like the whole thing. Cause I don't
This table mark that you
Will. I give you $10 for a paper, right?
Oh, I don't know what example's better.
No, you would never.
How about this table?
I'm looking at everybody at this table. Just some parts up.
Like making a big not unconditional.
Make sure that if you haven't checked Infinite Campus, you do so, because I think a lot of you think you took the test on deviant behavior, you didn't. So it's on Infinite Campus. Thank you.
Guys, I'm gonna go south.
Nothing can truly be selfless. No. I get text. Then you're doing it to feel good, so you're getting something out of it. Nothing's truly selfless.
Yeah, why would
Nothing is truly selfless. Nothing. No.
Yes, it is. It brings honor to your family.
Yeah, but then your family is more honored than you are more honored.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
You want to change you are doing it
To help
to help your family.
so that